Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As we welcome you once again to Wednesday nights with myself, Inayat Wadi, and in conversation, dealing with what is playing out in Iran at this point in time. Now, you will recall that during the month of Ramadan, we had covered extensively a number of issues with regard to Iran, and last week we spoke about the Palestinian response to the attacks that have been taking place against Iran. And once again, we're going to be unpacking some of the latest developments, particularly looking at the so-called diplomacy on the part of Donald Trump, talking about a ceasefire, 5 days, versus the rejection on the part of Iran. Now, we've got an interesting panel this evening, and we are going to be joined shortly by Dr. Hamidreza Oraee, who is the acting deputy ambassador and spokesperson of the embassy of Iran to South Africa. We will also be joined by Dr. Firoz Osman from the Media Review Network, and Amir Bagherioromi, who is an independent political and foreign affairs analyst. But just to put some of the discussion into context, and I think for many of us that woke up to the news by Donald Trump and calling for a 5-day ceasefire, I'm not too sure whether it actually came as a surprise, but it is clear that so much has actually taken place in the last 3 weeks or over 3 weeks in terms of the attacks on Iran and also for the greater Middle East region. And just to unpack some of this, we'll be talking firstly with my guest, Dr. Hamidreza Oraee. Dr. Hamidreza, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, Jazakallah. We certainly do appreciate you taking time out for us here at Salam Media this evening.
Wa alaikum assalam, inshallah. Everyone is fine, and thank you for you to invite me to your esteemed program, and all the best to you. Thank you.
Yes, certainly. You know, a lot has obviously happened, and we know we can, I suppose you and I can have a very long discussion because we are talking of a 47-year history as far as the United States of America is concerned and the Islamic Republic of Iran. But, you know, just in the interest of time, and I know you have got limited time as well, and let's just talk about some of the latest developments that took place. Firstly, did this come as a surprise? Because we know Donald Trump had issued a 48-hour ultimatum to Iran, and suddenly, out of the blue, we hear of this 5-day ceasefire. What do you make of this?
Actually, he did not announce ceasefire. He told that the threat that he threat us to open the Strait of Hormuz, which we say that it's open. He extended and postponed his threat against Iran. I think that because we are not ceasing any fire, the illegal attacks of Israel is happening against us, and now we are answering to those illegal attacks. He, as you told, he all of a sudden told that he will postpone the thing that he wanted to do, and he referred to a negotiation that we do not have anything about it. I think that when he felt the pressure and he saw the will of the Iranian people, he decided to drag himself out of that thing that he already mentioned to help himself.
Yes. Now, you know, obviously my reading into the situation is, and I think many are actually questioning the fact as to whether Donald Trump is actually losing his mind or is he becoming delusional. Because when one reads into some of the remarks that he's been making of late, where he speak about the regime in Iran has changed, the leaders in charge are now very different from the ones who were causing the problems. He speaks about the current crop of leaders being a new leadership in Iran. And, you know, what do you just make of this? Because at the end of the day, you know, he obviously is trying to claim victory. He made a statement that the war has been won, and he said that, at the end of the day, even Iran gave him a present, and a very, very big present, which was related to oil and gas. Now, is Donald Trump actually losing it?
We have a word that we say, when you cannot win, you need to change the meaning of victory. He is not, I think, delusional. He understands that there is no end and there is no victory for USA in this illegal attack against Iran. When he is trying to change the terms of winning, and he started blaming other people, for example, the Secretary of War that they do have, it shows that he wants to put an end to the endless and baseless illegal attacks that they started against Iran.
Yes. Now, let's just look at it from the Iranian perspective. Clearly, there is a clear rejection on the part of Iran that Iran has not been part of any negotiations with the United States of America. We've heard of countries like Turkey. We've heard of involvement of countries like Pakistan as well. Has there been any involvement? Is there some sort of indirect talks that have been taking place at this point in time?
Actually, no negotiations or talks happened. There were some messages that passed through some countries that you made, and we just conveyed our expectations and received what they sent to us. But let's say there was no direct or indirect talks with our enemies in this matter. And I think that Trump wants to drag himself out of this situation that he's stuck in.
Does he want to drag himself out of the situation, or do you think that he's got another trick up his sleeve? Because, we know that Donald Trump cannot be trusted. He says one thing one day, he says something completely different the other day. And I'm certain, looking at it from an Iranian perspective, that, you do not trust Donald Trump. We know what had happened a few months ago as well. And once again, when these negotiations were taking place, and out of the blue, suddenly the attack on Iran had taken place. And I'm sure that that trust obviously will never, ever be there as far as Iran and the United States of America is concerned.
You are completely right. We never trusted Trump, and we will not trust him. That's why I've told you that he is not delusional. It's maybe one of his psychological warfare that he maybe wants to make some hesitation in our defense. As all of you know, that we were in middle of negotiations, and in 2 times when we were in the middle of the negotiations, they attacked us. So we are vigilant. That's why we are not pleased or happy with the latest post that he mentioned, all of those interviews that he is doing. We are continuing to defend our people, and we will wait to see what will happen. And we will not put an end to this situation until we put an end to this vicious cycle of ceasefire negotiations, threats, and again, military attacks. I think that we need to put an end to this unfair situation against the people of Iran. We will not trust him, and we will completely be vigilant and ready to defend our country. Yes.
Well, certainly, and obviously, interesting you speak about the psychological warfare on the part of Donald Trump as well. And also at the same time, in terms of, we've been hearing terms like the war of attrition, and Iran is actually prepared to hold on for as long as possible. And we've seen it. Donald Trump thought that it was going to be a quick in and out. It's going to be a quick victory, with the killing of Ayatollah Khamenei as well, and they thought that they would introduce regime change almost immediately, which didn't happen. So it does appear from an Iranian perspective that Iran is prepared to hold out for as long as possible, and also looking at it from if this escalates, where we are talking about ground troops coming into Iran. Iran is obviously a very, very completely different picture as far as involving ground troops because of the country, the terrain, the mountainous terrain, and also in terms of the Iranian people. Their resolve seems to be very, very strong.
Sure. See, it is our home. So we have no way to go out of our home. And we are defending and we are protecting our home from an enemy who is attacking us. They are calling it an endeavor to regime change, but I think we must not continue to telling that regime change, because Iran is not a regime, is a legitimate government that is existing by the will of Iranian people. And if they send their ground troops, as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs told, we welcome them, because something very bad will happen
Bismillah.
because something very bad will happen to them.
Yes, and let's just move away from Donald Trump for a minute, and let's just look at the greater region, starting off with Israel. And obviously, this attack on Iran was prompted, and it was a joint effort between Netanyahu and Donald Trump as well. And just looking at it from an Iranian perspective, clearly we know that Israel has been hit very, very hard, like they haven't been hit before. And at this point in time, there is chaos in Israel. And what we've also learned is within Israel, at this point in time, within Israeli society, there is great concern because they did not expect the type of response that Iran had actually responded with.
Sure. We believe that USA regime started the war on behalf of Netanyahu. Netanyahu were looking for someone to come to war and risk the life and money of U.S. citizens and U.S. troops to go to war to an illegal attack against Iran. And he succeeded to convince Trump to do so. Yeah, sure, we had received illegal attacks and we used our inherent right to attack them, and we will continue doing that until we make sure that no more attacks will happen against our people.
Well, certainly. And also, let's just look at the greater Middle East region. Let's talk about the GCC, for example, as well. And clearly, they've been affected in quite a bad way. And once again, a lot that we've learned is total disappointment on the part of the GCC countries with Donald Trump, whom they relied on protection for a very, very long time, all the military bases that the United States obviously have in those countries as well. And clearly this, this was a gross miscalculation on the part of the GCC and the Arab countries as well in relying on the United States as a guarantor or as a protector.
Actually, somehow I can say that we are disappointed about what happened from the side of some of those Persian Gulf countries. They may miscalculate the power of Iran and the power of USA, but we expected them to respect our coexistence and friendship and being Muslim to each other. We completely and we reiterated, asked them not to give your airspace, not to give your military bases to USA. Do not let Israeli regime attack us from your airspace. I think that they must stop doing that. Other than calculating the power of the other side, neighborhoodliness, being Muslim brothers and sisters are the most important things. We are living in Persian Gulf and in Western Asian part of the world, and that's us that we continue live here. USA, after that invasion, that illegal invasion, will leave this location, and that's us that we will be here with each other, and we are going to live with each other in this place.
Well, obviously, this is a big game changer in terms of what has happened, and particularly when one looks at the Persian Gulf countries as well. We've learned about Iraq. We've learned about the American soldiers obviously clearing out of Iraq as well. So at this point in time, when we knew when the war had taken place in Iraq as well, America had built one of the biggest embassies in the region as well. And we see what has happened with many of the other military bases as well. So, from a mission accomplished perspective as well, we are seeing America starting to clear out of the Persian Gulf region. Iraq obviously is a clear example, and I'm sure that we are hoping that many of these other countries will follow suit, where they can stop relying on America, they can stop relying on its bases, they can stop relying on American soldiers and feet on the ground as their guarantors and their protectors.
I do agree with you. See, the west of Asia, the Persian Gulf, is our home. And we are living with our Muslim brothers and sisters. We do not want any external power to come to our region and ask us and tell us and dictate us what to do. We have the full power, we have the full friendship, we have the full brotherhood and sisterhood with our neighbors. We can run our region without any external factor.
Well, certainly. And just finally, let's just talk about the cards that Iran can still play at this point in time. Obviously, we've seen the firepower of Iran, its reach in terms of its military capability, its military capacity as well. But also at the same time, absolutely critical, it has been the Strait of Hormuz. And, that has been the major talking point, and that has been the major concern for the global economy at this point in time. And playing the Strait of Hormuz card on the part of Iran, how critical, how crucial is this that Iran gets it right?
See, that's illegal attacks against Iran is an existential war against us. We are fighting against intruders to save our country. So we will use all of the powers that we do have. I don't call them cards, but it can be called as cards. We are using our military capabilities. We are using our neighborhood countries who are friends with us and who are trying to convey the messages. We are using our military capacities. And the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz is the thing that it's open for all the countries, and it's closed to our enemies. Actually, it's not closed. They don't dare to pass it because they are our enemies, and we are in our let's say sacred defense against them. All of the assets of those entities, USA regime and Israeli regime, are our legitimate targets. So we are trying to use all of that means to keep and protect our country. And we must not forget something. So many countries are worried about the fuel price and about the food price of their own country. But we are worried about the life of our people.
Well, certainly, and interesting you say our people, and we know that at this point in time, like we've seen in the case of Gaza as well, it was vital, critical infrastructure that was hit, hospitals, schools, universities, innocent people, innocent children, men, women, children, and those were the targets. We've seen exactly what had happened in Iran as well, the 165 schoolgirls, many civilians that have been killed. We see exactly the same modus operandi in Lebanon playing out as well, over 1 million people that have been displaced. And once again, these are cowardly attacks. And we see history repeating itself all the time, that in the interest of regime change, it is the innocent that are being killed and that are losing their lives as well. But I'm sure, from an Iranian perspective, once again, what people fail to understand is the cause is just so much bigger at this point in time. As we've seen in the case of Gaza as well, they were prepared. They made all the sacrifices. They've lost their children. They've had so many martyrs. There are so many martyrs in Iran as we speak right now as well, and in Lebanon as well. And once again, it's about time that the Muslim world woke up to the true reality of who the true enemies are and why, all these conflicts are taking place?
Sure. See, we believe that if we like some countries that just forgot Palestinian and Gaza, the war, that illegal attack wouldn't happen against us. We are under attack because the children, innocent children of Gaza and Palestinian, and we will continue supporting them because we want to be on the right side of the history. It's important for each and every person in the world to try, think, and find what truth is. You talked about the innocent kids of Gaza, Palestine, also innocent people in Lebanon. And you correctly told that the history is repeating. If we read history, if we know history, if we know who is our friend, who was our friend, we will not repeat the mistakes that happened. During these negotiations that we have with USA, we were ready for the war, and that's why that we cannot continue to defending ourselves. We did not have trust on him, and we just wanted the world to know that we are eager to talk. We want to convince anyone that we are not seeking nuclear weapons, but we were sure that they are gonna attack us, and that's why we are responding them in full power.
Well, Dr. Hamidreza Oraee, we thank you. We say Jazakallah to you for taking time out, and I know you've got a busy schedule, so we'd like obviously not to keep you on for too long, but we will be joined shortly by Dr. Firoz Osman and Amir Bagheri, who is a political analyst as well, to unpack a lot more. And I know they have been listening in to this interview, so we will be unpacking a lot more. But for now, we thank you. We say Jazakallah to you for taking time out with us right here on Salam Media. All the best to you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you. Bye.
Iranian Embassy spokesperson Dr. Hamidreza Oraee with us. We're going to go for a quick break. We come back and we'll be joined by two other panelists to continue this discussion with regards to the so-called 5-day ceasefire on the part of Donald Trump, but also looking at the Iranian response. So a lot more to talk about. Stay with us. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As we welcome you once again to the airwaves of Salam Media. This is Wednesday nights with myself, Inayat Wadi, as we welcome our listeners, our viewers on the various platforms of Salam Media, and wonderful to be back with you after the month of Ramadan. And we trust and hope that you've had a blessed Ramadan, a wonderful Eid as well. But at the same time, we've seen a Muslim world once again in turmoil for a large part of Ramadan, and mainly as a result of the war against Iran, a joint effort by the United States of America and also Israel. And we've just seen so much happen during the month of Ramadan as well, and with all the devastation, the death, the destruction that has been taking place, and things have actually been changing by the day. Now, obviously, we are dealing with someone that is very, very unpredictable, and we are talking of none other than Donald J. Trump. And this is what we are unpacking this evening, looking at some of the latest developments, the 5-day deadline that Donald Trump had actually given as well. That was yesterday. I'm not too sure whether that came as a surprise. Earlier on, we had an interview with Dr. Hamidreza Oraee, who is the acting deputy ambassador and spokesperson of the Embassy of Iran to South Africa. We will try and obviously play out that interview a bit later. but we do have with us two other guests. We've got Dr. Firoz Osman, Media Review Networks, and also Amir Bagherioromi, who is an independent political and foreign affairs analyst with us this evening to unpack Trump's so-called ceasefire diplomacy versus the rejection by the Islamic Republic of Iran. And let's welcome our two guests onto the show this evening, Dr. Firoz Osman and Amir Bagherioromi. As they appear on screen, I see Dr. Firoz Osman is on already. Dr. Firoz, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome and jazakallah for your time.
Shukran, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
And Amir, as well to you, jazakallah for your time as well. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. It's great to be here.
Yes, we were going to play out the interview I had earlier on with the deputy ambassador. Unfortunately, there are one or two technical issues, but I'm sure there is a lot that, we will be able to unpack with both yourself and Dr. Firoz Osman as well. Brother Amir, just to begin with as well, we've seen things unfolding by the day, and I mentioned the unpredictability, and particularly with somebody like Donald J. Trump. And I just want to take a step back, actually. We know that there is a long history, a 47-year history since the Islamic Republic of Iran had actually come into being. And there has been a lot of animosity towards Iran in the last 47 years. But it is clear that a few months ago, about 8 months ago, and particularly now, in the month of Ramadan, a few weeks ago, just over 3 weeks ago, things have actually come to a head. And just from your side, was this expected? Did this come as a surprise? Or was Iran actually prepared or geared and ready for something like this to happen?
Yeah, fantastic. And thank you for the great question. I think let's start with Iran's readiness. Whether it was a surprise or not, I think what we know is that Iran definitely foresaw from its initial days that it will eventually be confronted by the Western powers. If you look at the likes of US and its proxies, over the past 47 years, they have tried their level best to often, disturb the kind of independent growth, both in terms of socioeconomic and political development that Iran has had over and over again, unsuccessfully so. But, one of the tools it has had over the years is the global sanctions that has continuously been imposed on Iran for various reasons. That could be for the nuclear program, the missile program, and oftentimes around human rights issues. And in my personal opinion, none of these sanctions were really ever about nuclear program or missile program or human rights issues, but to actually slow the Iranian, government down in terms of its own objectives and and in terms of achieving its own national interest, regardless. Now, whether this particular Ramadan war was a surprise, I would beg to differ. I don't think it was. I think Iran learned its lesson from the 12-day war that happened, a few months prior to this moment, and it knew that it will happen again regardless. So it prepared itself accordingly. And as you can see, based on its war strategy in this first 25 days or so, has been relatively effective, at least for Iran, in terms of buying itself time and putting the entire international community at pressure to make sure that this war comes to an end and the US and Israeli hegemony in the region is eliminated once and for all.
Well, certainly. And also, I think, Dr. Firoz, when one looks at over the years, what the Americans have actually done is actually built a wall around Iran. And when one looks at the American bases surrounding Iran, the GCC states as well, the Persian Gulf states as well. And over the years, they created this false sense of security for the Middle East countries, but at the same time using this wall as a threat to Iran. And we've seen this build-up take place over many years, trillions and billions of dollars that have actually been spent. And obviously things have come to a head because when one looks at the chain of events in the build-up, the genocide that had been unfolding in Gaza, Iran being an active supporter of the resistance in Gaza as well, both Hamas and also Hezbollah as well. So Iran was seen as a threat for a very, very long time. And we knew at some point in time that, the next target will be Iran. And I'm sure, with this build-up, you yourself won't be surprised that, Iran obviously it was targeted a few months ago for a few days, about 12 days or whatever it is. But this time around, obviously, it's something much bigger.
Right from the beginning of the Islamic Revolution that took place in 1979, when they declared, when the two issues that was mentioned by my colleague, they talked about an independent foreign policy that Iran wanted to institute, and for the benefit of its own people. And this is right at the beginning when they overthrew the Shah Reza Pahlavi's reign. We must remember that he himself was an MI6 CIA plot to reinstall him after they removed Mohammad Mossadegh's reign in 1953. So Iran has been in the eye because it wants to pursue an independent foreign policy. Now, you mentioned about sanctions, which was instituted right from the time of the revolution that took place. And sometimes sanctions is underestimated as if it is better than a bomb. But according to certain institutions and research centers, sanctions have killed over 38 million people, and this is Western research in the past 40, 50 years, from 1971 to 2001. So sanctions has been instituted against Iran. But to come back to the issue about the bases, America has about 800 bases throughout the world. It has 60 surrounding Iran, 19 full-fledged bases, and others that are outposts. And these bases have completely surrounded Iran. And this is by design, because there was a general in NATO by the name of Wesley Clark. He was a four-star general. And he went to the Pentagon and was found a document that selected 7 Muslim countries: Iraq, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria. And they said they're going to topple each one of them, ending with Iran. And we can see the havoc that they have caused in many of these countries. So Iran must have been expecting it. They knew, and inshallah, the preparations that they have conducted will see fruition of what it is happening as they counter the attack by the Zionists and by the United States of America. Also, finally, Netanyahu has been after Iran, saying that Iran has got a bomb 2 weeks' time, 2 months' time, and he's talking about it for the last 20 years. Of course, there is Islamophobia that is carrying on. There is a division that he has tried to do between the Arab and the Islamic world within the Islamic world itself. So all this, if Iran was not aware, I'll be very surprised. And, we can see that the preparation by Iran to counter what has been happening has certainly.
Yes, Dr. Firoz, shukran for that. And let's just get back to Amir as well. Amir, when one actually just looks at the whole justification for the attack on Iran, and the Western propaganda machine has always been talking about Iran being a sponsor of terror, but one can actually break it down even further, and obviously, in terms of whether it's ideological, whether it's political, whether looking at Iran and its position in the greater Persia region as well. And looking at Iran, as a threat, because it is clear that apart from just Gaza, which I mentioned 3 years ago, one can take a step back in terms of what has taken place in Iraq. What had taken place in Yemen, the Houthis Saudi Arabia, the attack on Yemen. That had taken place as well. So, when one puts all of that together, it is clear that Iran is seen as a powerhouse, but also at the same time when one looks at the latest scenario that is playing out, the expectation was like they did in Afghanistan, a quick in and out, thinking that they could just bomb and get rid of the regime. make sure that there is regime change, get rid of the leadership, and that's going to be the end of it. But yet we see Iran now standing their ground, and again their preparedness, I'm sure has put America and Israel both on a back foot in terms of how Iran is actually responded this time around.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I mean, the justification this time around was similar to the one last time, which was Iran's accessibility to potential nuclear, weapon, and its missile program that is a risk to the world in accordance to at least the Western propaganda machine. That is the case. But I think the issue is a bit deeper than that, and we need to have a more historical lens when we look at Iran. I don't think the West has ever, throughout history, or civilizational history, really has liked a powerful Iran, has enjoyed a powerful Persia. And my colleague mentioned earlier that, Mohammed Reza Pahlavi, who came back into power through a sponsored coup d'etat that was orchestrated by, CIA, that is, and MI6. That was really an attempt to weaken a democratic Iran that could potentially be a sting in the Western, eye. At the same time, when even Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, in his final years, when he realized that, the West doesn't really have Iran's best interests at heart, and he also started taking, anti-Israeli and anti-Western positions. With the emergence of, OPEC and so forth, you realize how quickly the West stepped back and left Mohammad Reza Pahlavi on his own, so much so that the revolution was successful when it happened, and this is not to undermine or underestimate the power of the revolution. What I'm trying to say is that even when, Mohammed Reza Pahlavi fled the country, none of the Western powers were willing to support him or even give him refuge for him to return. Retire as an individual, and this was literally the closest ally in Middle East, which goes back to the point in which I'm trying to make, that the West has never wanted a strong Iran, whether it's an Iran with an Islamic ideology, whether it's an Iran with a secular ideology, whether it's an Iran from a pre-Islamic or post-Islamic ideology. The West just never wants to see anyone other than them to have any potential of influence on the global scale. And you see that pattern with the way in which they dealt with China during the Opium Wars, the way in which they dealt with Soviet Union during the Cold War, the way West just wants to be the hegemonic power throughout and through. But why is this moment why is this moment important for us? Is exactly that kind of Islamic lens, that the West hates to see unity amongst the different sects of Islam under the banner of Islam and Islamic ideology. They very much hate to see Islamic states develop in a way that is progressive, but at the same time loyal and committed to Islamic values. And that is why you would see ministers in Israel openly saying that after Iran, it will be Turkey. And I can guarantee you, after Turkey, it will be Saudi. UAE, Qatar, and the list will go on until Israel dream of the greater Israel becomes a reality. So that is the ideological warfare, and it is so much more than the contemporary history, but rather one that is civilizational.
Yes. Also, Dr. Firoz, the question is just how badly has both the United States of America and Israel miscalculated this time around, because I'm hoping Dr. Firoz is on screen. I know he was having a problem, but perhaps Amir I see. Okay, Dr. Firoz is on screen. Dr. Firoz, just how badly has America and both Israel miscalculated? Because when one looks at the modus operandi, it's very, very it's predictable. It's very, very similar to what we've seen in the past. In terms of regime change. Taking out the top echelons, the leadership in this case, Ayatollah Khamenei and some of the other top leadership were taken out. In the past, we've seen how systematically the Palestinian resistant leadership were being taken out from Sheikh Yassin right until Yahya Sinwar. People like Ismail Haniya, Dr. Abdul Aziz Rantisi, when one looks at what has happened in Lebanon as well, the leadership that was taken, say, Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, that were taken out. And just by taking out the leadership, Trump had actually made a statement saying that the regime has been changed in Iran and that the leaders in charge now are very different from the ones who were causing problems before. Do you think this has actually solved Donald Trump's problems?
I think it's made it worse. But it's the arrogance, the hubris of the West that they think by so their words, decapitating the leadership will solve their problems. Don't they ever learn that it has never happened? I mean, just as Iran has shocked the world by its resistance towards the hegemonic powers, we must never forget that it really was initiated on October 7th in Gaza, a tiny stroke of 2 million people, and aided and abetted by the Iranians. We mustn't forget that they developed a structure of tunnels a maze of tunnels about 700 kilometers long under the watchful eyes of the Zionists. But in their arrogance, they thought that they had won the submission of the Palestinian people. And let us not forget that the period when Hamas attacked the Zionist occupiers, that the Arab world was moving one by one, whether it was Morocco, the Emirates, they started with Egypt, of course, and Jordan. And then we found the relations between Qatar, and the final straw for them was the Saudis that were crawling under the hegemonic powers of Israel for them to control the Middle East, and their dominance was absolutely the resistance movements, whether it was Hezbollah, Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad. And likewise, we find that the world order has not only shattered the world, the Western world, but also the I would say illegitimate monarchies that are surrounding Iran today. And they are quivering in their booths, in their castles, as to what is going to happen. And we mentioned about the bases earlier. The purpose of the base of the bases on their soil was to grant them protection. But it's sad to say that even a country like Qatar did not learn when Israel, that Zionist entity, decided to kill some of the Hamas negotiators in Doha, then suddenly those defense units were not working. And Now they are shooting off the ballistic missiles that are coming to the American bases from Iran. So it should have made them aware that it is America that is only interested in the twin foreign policy. One it is to control the energy from that region, and secondly, the defense of Israel. That is all they're interested in. So yes, there is shock and awe, but that began really on October 7th. In 2023 with Hamas, and it is continuing. And a message to all those resistance fighters that victory is possible against the hegemonic powers of the Middle East.
Yes, and also, Amir, I think you mentioned the Greater Israeli Project and just how are intertwined and how closely linked the Greater Israel Project is to what is happening in Iran and what has also been playing out in Gaza as well. And at that point in time, over 2 years ago, when the genocide in Gaza had started, we said that this Gaza will be determining the new world order, and which it did. Because we've seen this and we've seen the reaction right across the entire world. And now we are seeing with the attack on Iran, we're seeing another reaction from across the entire world, where the world at this point in time has possibly come to realize as well how strategic Iran is, and the Strait of Hormuz. Obviously, is a clear example in terms of what this is actually done to the world, the energy, the oil. And everything else that is passing through the Strait of Hormuz, and how important Iran actually is. And again, in terms of determining a new world order, it has obviously revealed Gaza revealed the ugly face of Israel during the genocide. And now Iran has exposed America and Israel a lot more in terms of who these countries really are and what their ambitions are in terms of global dominance. And also at the same time, total disregard for international law.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the main thing that the Western powers have really showcased, that international law is a selective thing that only applies to people of color and not necessarily the Western country themselves. And one of the most amusing things things really, and this is something I've been thinking about quite often lately, is that how over the past almost 50 years, 5 decades, the Iranian government with immense amounts of sanction has not only like developed socioeconomically and politically, but also in terms of defense, which to say the least has been impressive. I can't think of any other country in world history that has been attacked either by US or Israel, never mind both of them combined, and have not only managed to survive, but actually hold the line. Until this very moment. And what is really, I think, interesting is that Iran has managed to survive and continue to develop for 5 decades. Yet the entire global community is struggling with 25 days of oil sanctions from Iran through the Strait of Hormuz. And it is actually so interesting to see how the global community can suddenly unite together and want to attend to an issue such as opening up of the Strait of Hormuz because of the economic impact that it's having yet Iran has continuously remained patient with all the sanctions that it's been facing, with all the propaganda that it's been facing. And I think this resistance, and I'll be very honest and vulnerable about this. As I was growing up, in my teens, and my earlier youth days, I never thought Iran or the current government of Iran will ever be able to break free from the propaganda that it had been dealing with for 47 years. But ever since, the genocide that took place in Gaza, and Iran being really, like, after Hamas being on the front line, Iran being the only vocal defender alongside Hezbollah, they have managed to finally fight that propaganda machine. And really bring about a kind of awareness about how global politics work, firstly, and how the system is designed to benefit the West, as the academics would call it, in a form of a neo-colonial form. And the younger people, the younger generation, the Gen Z, and the millennials, when you look at their politics, they are a lot more progressive. They are a lot more global South and East leaning instead of West leaning, which is something I grew up with, and that shift in global politics and the way in which, we look at politics is going to be fundamentally important because at the end of the day, it is the next generation of leaders in the global South and in the East that will have to shape what's the now and the future will look like. We know that, the revolutionaries, whether it's in South Africa or Iran or other countries, they are getting old, they are aging, and this is that critical moment and crucial moment for the new generation of leaders to have the understanding of this past and really be able to stay strong and continue with this resistance for as long as it takes, because like Dr. Firoz said, victory might not necessarily be as untangible as we initially thought. Perhaps the past decade or so, but rather something that is very tangible. And something very much achievable.
Well, certainly. And also, I think, Dr. Firoz, coming from somebody like Donald Trump, the question is just how delusional is Donald Trump? Considering the recent remarks, the recent statements that he has been made. We know he gave the 48-hour ultimatum. Now we're talking about 5 days. He speaks about getting this massive gift from Iran, talking to somebody very high up in Iran as well. And this is something that we'd like to unpack. Because, what type of diplomacy or ceasefire diplomacy is Donald Trump talking about? Because Iran has made it very, very clear that, and it has actually rejected that they have been talking to America, and yet you have somebody like Donald Trump, and this is the reason why I'm saying delusional, selling this idea to the world that he is talking to Iran. And he's talking to Iranian leadership.
I sometimes wonder how has Donald Trump been re-elected? After the first 4 or 5-year term, re-elected by the American people. The Western press itself says that every time he opens his mouth, their words is that he lies. And he's absolutely, I think the word was used here, delusional. What fantasy is he talking about American military power as being second to none? Certainly they're strong. And there's no denying that. I mean, but they're strong in a destructive way. But have they won in countries like Vietnam? We know that they had to leave. They destroyed and killed maybe 3 million Vietnamese, but they lost at the end. The same thing, they spent 6 trillion dollars in attacking Afghanistan. To replace the Taliban after 20 years with the Taliban again. And in Iraq, I believe the last of the forces have left again. So I think he's unhinged to say 15 at the very least. He's issued a $15-point note of through the Pakistanis. To give to the Iranians, but the Iranians are very firm in saying that, like the Israelis do in mowing the lawn and going to Gaza every few years in order to remove the resistance, that Iran is not going to stand for it any longer. That yes, we have a choke point. We have the Strait of Hormuz in our hands, and let us not forget that the Ansarullah, as we call it Houthis in Yemen is waiting. In the sidelines, they have not yet entered the war. But 20% of the oil has caused such havoc
Right.